Hello and welcome to the second lesson in the Netvangelism 101 Masterclass. And in this video, we are going to be talking about the second pillar, the second foundational pillar that you must have if you want to have an effective digital outreach program for your church. And that pillar is that you must staff for digital outreach success in your church. How do you do that? Because if you created a structure like we explained in the previous video, where you break down what you really want to do online, who's going to do what is the different areas you want to focus on, you now need to have staff to go with them. There is no point having an elaborate organogram like this and you don't have staff that will run it. It's not going to happen. It's just going to be a wish on paper. It's just going to be a dream. You can pray all you want. If you don't put the staffing in there, God has nothing to bless that prayer with. So you must staff for digital outreach success in your church. You cannot do it as an afterthought, the way many of us are doing. Several churches I used to go to ask them, who is your Netvangelism director? They really don't have. They have at best, they have a media team. They show me a media team. And I keep saying your media technical team is not your staff for your Netvangelism ministry. They are supposed to be support, the administration, to help your pastors minister online, to help their videos to go viral, to help their videos to show. But the real ministers are the staff that you put in charge of the structures that you set up. For instance, in our own setup, where we have a purpose director for worship, purpose director for ministry, purpose director for evangelism, purpose director for fellowship and discipleship, we needed to have specific people doing ministration there, and then the technical support or admin staff help them to do that. So same way for you, whether you're having a standalone internet church or an internet church that is an adjunct of your physical church, you need to start to staff for digital outreach success. Nothing will happen until digital outreach is owned by some staff who must execute the pastor's vision and who must be held accountable for growth the same way you hold other departments accountable. When you're having your meeting with your team leaders every month in your physical church, you know that you have the person in charge of ushers. They're going to give a report. The person in charge of your worship department, they're going to give a report. Your media people are going to give a report. Those who do counseling, same way on the internet. You have to hold people accountable for different parts of your digital outreach, because where there is no accountability, nothing happens. People do what you expect, not what you expect. You must have a digital outreach team, complete with a digital outreach director, or what I call Netvangelism director. This is not a joke anymore, people. You have to make this happen. You have to be able to point to somebody in your church that is our evangelism director, or that's our evangelism pastor, or that's our outreach director, whatever name you want to call him. But that's the person that coordinates the digital outreach of your church. And I recommend it should not be you as the pastor of your church, unless your church is really, really so small, you can't afford to have anybody else do anything, which in itself will limit you from growing. If you have to do everything yourself, there's only so much. Even for our own internet church, there's only so much I can do as a person. I had to get staffing. In many cases, I actually paid my 5 directors. They are paid staff positions. We pay them very little, but we pay them for 20 hours a week because I need worship to be going on. I need the pastors in charge of worship to be doing their thing. I need somebody to make sure it's happening. I want evangelism to be happening. I structured all of that just like I put it here. That's the first thing I activated, these first 5 departments. That's the first thing I activated online with staff. You must have an outreach team that is, like in our own case, as you can see, we are all structured online. I get it, but you can use a format of this to do your own version. So you will have, instead of vision overseer here, so you will be the senior pastor here, and then you can then have internet parish pastor or an evangelism pastor here, and then build out whatever it is you want to do, the way you want to do your ministry online, so that you can have a robust ministry that is not just only self-sufficient online, but that fits the offline church. So that even when something like a corona happens and churches can't open, you are still structured to continue to minister to people. Many churches are stuck now. They have not even figured out how they're going to do fellowship online. They're still struggling to preach on Sundays. So it's going to develop your members through discipleship. Who is going to develop your members to do ministry while church is not open? Because you're not structured for that. So you need to have staff to go with your structure. And I always recommend, these are some of the components of your digital outreach team that I will recommend. But of course, the whole idea of the masterclass is for you to learn and then get your team together to now see how are they going to implement this in your own specific custom church. And of course, we are available if you need us to help with implementation of any part of this. It's a big part of what I do. Personally, you can schedule an appointment to talk with me about it. Netvangelism360.com/appointment. And then we can talk online. I can answer your questions, at least for first 60 minutes is free. If after that, you need my help for that, then we can talk about terms on which I can help you implement. But this is what I recommend. In case you want to do this yourself, you need to have a digital outreach director or an evangelism pastor, as I always like to call them. You need to have social media coordinators at the minimum. You need to have evangelism bloggers, and you need to have key ministry managers. Again, remember, most of these positions will be volunteer-based. Lots of your members, even those who don't come to church regularly, they will gladly volunteer to be part of this team. You just have to sell the vision as a pastor. You need to be clear. You need to have a strategy to get them. Most youths, churches I've consulted for, and in the last 3 months, I've been consulting for some of the bigger churches in Africa on this. One of the churches we consulted for is like in the top 10 of the biggest redeemed churches in Nigeria. And we also have in another church there that has over 3,000 members. We have consulted for a church of 200 people, church of 5,000 people. So we tell them how to do this, that you don't need to have paid staff everywhere. They can be volunteer staff. They will gladly do the social media coordinators. You can have a core team of people in your church that will do this. Of course, their job description, what they do, how they do it, that's subject of a totally different training. We can't go into details into all of that here. But these are some of them. And I'm going to show you what we did at the Cyber Embassy as an example of what works and what doesn't work. Okay, so you are looking at staffing these areas. You can start with volunteers, but if you have paid staff in other areas, you must consider having some paid staff here. I personally would say at the minimum, you want to have a paid social media manager. He can coordinate so many of your platforms for you if you can afford to have different people there. But it can be a paid social media manager working with maybe 10 volunteers, somebody to hold Telegram, somebody to manage your Instagram, somebody to manage your Facebook, somebody to manage your Twitter, as many social media as you want to be active on, and they all report to this social media manager that is a paid staff. You don't need to pay them plenty money. You can make it a 10-hour a week job. So you pay them very little. 10 hours is more than enough for them to coordinate for you each week. That translates about 2 hours a day. That's a lot of time. Their job is to follow up on each of these volunteers to make sure they're doing their job, to make sure that as things are coming out in the church, they're disseminating it. They're following people. And all of that, we will talk about how they do their work. That's how we got people to sign up to be members of our church. That's why we got workers to commit to be workers of the church. That's how we get people to do our designs and all that. It's all structure. And you lead from your church service. When we come to how to involve people in your church service, which is part of this masterclass, you want to pay attention when we get to that lesson. You can actually gradually begin to integrate this whole thing from your physical church, and it's all growing. So the first thing with your visitors program is not to create a system of structure, all right, but to find a person or people that will champion your social media engagement.